On a clear September morning in 2001, the world watched in horror as terrorists attacked the United States. 19 men, fueled by a radical ideology, hijacked 4 commercial airplanes. Their targets, symbols of American economic and military might. The Twin Towers of the World Trade Center in New York City crumbled after being struck by 2 of the hijacked planes. The Pentagon, the nerve center of the US military, was also hit. Passengers and crew, in an act of extraordinary bravery, fought back against the hijackers on the 4th plane, preventing it from reaching its intended target, believed to be the US Capitol building. This act of defiance forced the plane down in a field in Shanksville, Pennsylvania. The attacks on 9/11 resulted in the deaths of 2,977 innocent people from over 90 countries. The collapse of the Twin Towers and the damage to the Pentagon left an indelible scar on the American psyche. The world mourned with the United States, offering condolences and support in the face of this unprecedented attack. The attacks marked a turning point in history, exposing the vulnerability of even the most powerful nation to the threat of terrorism. The perpetrators of this horrific act were members of Al-Qaeda, a global terrorist network led by Osama bin Laden. Bin Laden, a Saudi-born militant, had declared war on the United States in 1996. He denounced American foreign policy in the Middle East and called for the overthrow of governments he deemed un-Islamic. Bin Laden's ideology, a radical interpretation of Islam, found fertile ground among disaffected Muslims around the world. The 9/11 attacks were a wake-up call for the United States and the world. They forced a reassessment of security measures, intelligence gathering, and foreign policy. The attacks also exposed the dangers of radical ideologies and the need to address the root causes of terrorism. The world would never be the same. To understand why 9/11 happened, it's crucial to delve into the twisted logic that fueled Al-Qaeda's hatred. At its core was a radical interpretation of Islam, one that viewed the United States as the enemy of Islam and Muslims worldwide. Bin Laden and his followers believed that America's military presence in the Middle East, particularly in Saudi Arabia, the birthplace of Islam, was a desecration of Holy Land. They pointed to US support for Israel and sanctions against Iraq as further evidence of Western aggression against the Muslim world. Bin Laden's message resonated with some Muslims who felt marginalized and angered by the policies of their own governments and the West. The collapse of the Soviet Union and the subsequent US intervention in the Middle East, particularly the First Gulf War, had created fertile ground for extremist ideologies to take root. Bin Laden skillfully exploited these grievances, portraying the United States as an imperialist power bent on subjugating Muslims. Al-Qaeda's ideology went beyond merely opposing specific US policies. It called for the establishment of a global caliphate governed by a strict interpretation of Islamic law. Violence, in their eyes, was a justified means to achieve this ultimate goal. The 9/11 attacks, in their distorted worldview, were not merely acts of terror, but blows struck against a perceived oppressor. This dangerous narrative, unfortunately, continues to find adherents today. Understanding Al-Qaeda's motivations is not about condoning their actions, but about comprehending the complex interplay of factors that can lead individuals down a path of extremism. It highlights the need to counter not only terrorist organizations, but also the ideologies that fuel them. The 9/11 attacks had profound and far-reaching consequences for the United States, fundamentally altering its domestic and foreign policies. In the immediate aftermath, the nation united in grief and outrage, demanding justice for the victims and security from future attacks. The Bush administration responded with the War on Terror, launching military interventions in Afghanistan and Iraq, targeting Al-Qaeda and regimes accused of harboring terrorists. Domestically, the attacks led to the creation of the Department of Homeland Security, a massive reorganization of the government aimed at preventing future terrorist attacks. The Transportation Security Administration, TSA, was established to enhance security at airports, forever changing the way Americans travel. The Patriot Act, passed in the wake of the attacks, expanded government surveillance powers in the name of national security, sparking debates about the balance between liberty and security that continue to this day. The War on Terror had a profound impact on US foreign policy. The wars in Afghanistan and Iraq, while initially successful in toppling the Taliban and Saddam Hussein, became costly and protracted conflicts. The US focus on counter-terrorism diverted resources and attention from other foreign policy priorities, such as great power competition and climate change. The wars also fueled anti-American sentiment in some parts of the world, complicating US efforts to build international coalitions. The 9/11 attacks left an enduring legacy on the United States, shaping its approach to security, its role in the world, and its national identity. The events of that day continue to resonate today, reminding us of the ever-present threat of terrorism and the importance of vigilance in a complex and interconnected world. In the years since 9/11, the global terrorist threat has evolved significantly. While Al-Qaeda has been weakened, new terrorist groups, often inspired by its ideology, have emerged. The rise of ISIS, which seized control of vast territories in Iraq and Syria, demonstrated the evolving nature of the terrorist threat. ISIS, with its sophisticated use of social media and online propaganda, proved adept at recruiting followers and inspiring attacks worldwide. The nature of terrorism itself has also changed. The focus has shifted from large-scale, spectacular attacks like 9/11 to smaller, more frequent attacks, often carried out by individuals or small groups inspired by extremist ideologies. The internet and social media have become powerful tools for radicalization, enabling terrorist groups to spread their propaganda and recruit followers without the need for physical training camps. The fight against terrorism has become more complex and multifaceted. It requires not only military might, but also a comprehensive approach that addresses the root causes of extremism, such as poverty, inequality, and political instability. International cooperation is essential to share intelligence, disrupt terrorist networks, and counter the spread of extremist ideologies. The 9/11 attacks were a watershed moment, ushering in an era of heightened security concerns and a global fight against terrorism. While the world has made progress in degrading terrorist organizations, the threat remains real and constantly evolving. As we move forward, it is crucial to learn from the past, adapt to new challenges, and remain vigilant in the face of this enduring threat.